What's the weirdest thing you've done as a result of social anxiety? I was in a dance class a few years ago and we had to do improv. Everyone there was a way better dancer than me, so I had a difficult time just with that. Well, my teacher gave us 5 minutes to come up with a dance to a whole song, and you'd have to dance in front of the class alone. I noped the frick out of there and ran and hid in the bathroom. My cell phone was still in the classroom, but at that point I didn't care. I decided to sneak out the front door of the studio. Well, there's a small problem there. The walkway to the parking lot was in front of the giant windows of my classroom. I decided to just duck down and run the best I could, hoping no one saw me. I made it to the car and had my dad run in and get my phone. Didn't go back to my class for a few weeks there. I had the same dance improv day too and I was so anxious about coming up with something. When it was my turn I clapped a few times, turned in a circle, and did the grapevine and then ran out because I really had to pee. One time when I was a kid, I was calling up a girl I liked to ask her if she wanted to hang out. Her mom answered the phone and in my awkward teenage bumbling I asked her mom if she wanted to hang out. I'm still not quite over that one, nearly 10 years later. To be fair, Stacy's mom did have it going on. It was 3rd grade. I had a presentation the next day that I really didn't want to do, so I took a hammer and sat in the backyard trying to break my own ankle. I just ended up bruising it because I couldn't go full force. Can relate. I tried breaking my fingers in 6th grade because I didn't want to play my clarinet in front of my band class. I was buying a Zelda themed wallet at Infi once. The cashier asked me if I wanted a bag for it. I just stammered and said no thanks. I'll just equip it now. No thanks. I'll just equip it now. Honestly, that's a really solid gaming joke. TLDR. I faked an angry phone call because I was too afraid to just get out of line. I was picking up my little sister from school, and I didn't have anything better to do and I didn't want her to have to wait on the long car line. So I got there 40 minutes early. About 5 minutes before school let out, she told me she was going home with a friend. I was so scared that the people behind me in line would think I was creepy if I just left the line after all that time. So I pretended to be on the phone, got out of my car and rummaged through my trunk while acting like I was angry at the person on the other end of the call, complete with annoyed arm movements and all, then got back in and drove off. I admire the commitment. Bravo. After work, I decide to get a beer at a bar. I teach night classes on a side of town I'm not used to, so I go into random sports bar and I sit alone. I do not watch most sports. Later, me, in my mind, it's getting late. I should go home. Random guy, hey, this Texans game is good. Can't believe something football-y happened. Me, pretending to know football stuff. Yeah, these dudes are dope. The Texans are in for some trouble if they mess up. Guy, finally, someone on my side. The guy buys me beer. We are now best friends. Turns out we are the only fans of whatever the other team is in this bar. We bond over our outsider status. I have no idea what to say, and as the night goes on, he keeps buying beer. I have pretended to like football for too long to come clean now. I end up watching the whole game. Our team lost. I didn't get home until midnight. The other day at my small office I went to the bathroom to fix my shirt which I had worn inside out. When I went into the stall the bathroom was empty. As I flipped my shirt around someone walked into the stall next to me. I also used some toilet paper to wipe my nose, slight cold, and dropped the paper in the bowl. This triggered the auto flush sensor and it flushed. My predicament began when I realized I also had to pee. But since I had already used TP and flushed, my twisted mind decided this would seem really weird to the person next door. Why would someone use the bathroom, flush, and then stand up and pee again? Said no one ever. But I couldn't. They might recognize my shoes and know who I was. So instead I hatched a clever deception. I left the stall and washed my hands to seem normal. Despite that I hadn't even used the bathroom. After drying I walked loudly to the exit and opened the door into the hall. Then I said oh excuse me like I had accidentally bumped into someone else coming in, and walked right back in. I made sure to change the sound of my footsteps walking more quietly so that stall man would think I was a different person and not some freak playing bathroom charades. Then I went to the urinal and peed and then washed my hands again. using the farthest sink so he couldn't spot my shoes. When I was in middle school, the teacher had us all read a chapter aloud to the class. Nervously awaiting my turn to read, I started to read aloud to the class while someone else was currently reading, not only once but 3 times. I'm from Ireland, a Catholic enough country. I deliver pizzas, and one night a woman said "God be with you" as I was walking away, and I stumbled over my words and said "peace be upon you" like the fecking pizza poop. Cringed pretty hard walking away as she just looked at me. Pizza upon you. I once got off the wrong bus stop on purpose because I didn't want to tell the bus to stop, so I just waited for it to stop itself. I've gotten off at the wrong stop because I didn't want to tell the driver I didn't mean this one. This one time I was approached by a high school girl trying to get my contact info. I'm only 22, so I mean I guess I'm passable for just an older guy, but clearly you gotta say no. So me, being a Reddit user, said something stupid. I started to say "sorry, but I'm old enough to be your dad," but that was so dumb I changed it mid-sentence to "sorry, I'm old enough to be your brother," but that didn't make any sense, so what really came out of my mouth was "sorry, I'm old enough to be your brother's college roommate," and then we both stood there in that amazing WTF feeling you get when you're just overloaded with WTF. I once hid from my family when they came over for the holidays out of fear of interaction. I hid especially from one of my cousins who was socially aggressive and just made me really anxious. I had nowhere else to hide where there wasn't people, so I went into my bathroom and hid under the sink. I was about 8 and just planned to stay there as long as possible. My cousin, the aggressive one, came in, took a long and winded crap and then left. I just stayed there and am to this day even more terrified of interacting with him. I saw nothing but I heard every sound. I'm just imagining you having a Vietnam flashback, but instead of soldiers screaming, it's the echoed sounds of a violent crap. When I was about 11, I stood in a room with my mom and her employees after an office Thanksgiving luncheon. They were chatting away about various things and we were all snacking. I took a bite of turkey and as I went to swallow it, it lodged in my throat. I kept swallowing as hard as I could but it wouldn't budge and I couldn't breathe. I didn't have a drink near me either, so I stood there attempting to get it down while giving no indication that I was literally choking on my food, because I didn't want to interrupt the conversation or draw attention to myself. My vision was starting to black on the edges and I was full on panicking inside when I finally got it swallowed down. I remember breathing heavy through my nose and my eyes watering, thinking how stupid I just was, but now I definitely couldn't say anything about it. Sometimes it feels like anxiety will kill you, sometimes it almost does. My girlfriend was a server at a restaurant called Bonefish and she was supposed to ask "have you ever dined at Bonefish?" but instead she asked "have you ever boned at Dinnerfish?" She was mortified but her customers thought it was hilarious. I was at a Chipotle. The girl asked me how my day had been. I said "large please" because I got confused and thought she was asking what size I wanted. Then she asked if I wanted white rice or the other rice they had and I said yes. They don't even have sizes. This is amazing on so many levels. Was at a picnic with some friends, 10-15 people. Turned into like 50-75 people within an hour. Enter extreme anxiety. Went up to grill to get hot dog. Cute girl walks behind me to get one. Notice and start sweating. Barbecue homie hands me my hot dog. So nervous I drop it right onto the cement. Didn't know to get another one so picked it up with dirt all over it. Took a bite and walked away. Added bonus, a bush I'm really allergic to was nearby, so the next week I had an allergic reaction all over my body from it. Good times with my pal social anxiety. That's fricked up. This moment haunts me still. It's kind of long-winded but I hope it paints the picture. About 15 years ago I was a young teen browsing the electronics section of Walmart. As I was leaving that area, this guy and girl around my age were coming into the electronics area. They saw me and both enthusiastically said hey like they were happy and surprised to see me. I didn't recognize them but I thought maybe we had a class together or something, so I was like hey, how's it going, feigning cheerfulness as I tried to place where I knew them from. They both looked at me weird and made a face, then walked past me to a guy and girl behind me, greeting them. I was so embarrassed and anxious I just got out of the electronics department as fast as I could without running and went to the next department over, which ended up being ladies clothing, the bra and panty area. A female employee came over and asked if I needed help. Looking at me confused because of the department, I was flustered and said, "Sorry, just trying to find electronics," to which she replied, "Oh, it's over this way, come with me." I didn't want to go back, but now I was obligated, so I followed her back, and as we approached I saw the two teens I had the awkward interaction with and their two friends all look up and stare at me. "There you go, hun," the employee said. Then she started chatting with the cashier in electronics. At that time Walmart's electronics section was like a big square with only one opening for entrance and exit go to turf theft, so now I'm trapped in this area with the people I just had the awkwardness with and the employee that just escorted me from women's clothes. I was so embarrassed and my whole body felt hot from anxiety. I just blankly stared at the video games behind the glass until the other people left, and then I took off. Ugh. This one actually physically hurt to read. I'm so sorry. I went into a store I used to work at expecting to see my co-workers so I could greet them. A lady was there, but I had no idea who she was. She asked me if she could help, and I stuttered a no. Then I stood and kind of tapped my feet around like I was a freaking tap dancer, and I tried apologizing but instead said, I'm not looking for you." She looked so confused and I could feel my face getting red. I literally ran out. Not just walked, quickly ran and slammed into the door. It's heavy and hurt my arm. Though injured, I trudged on. I heard her call out and ask if I was okay as I ran out. Now I can never go back. That poor woman was trying to be helpful while also being super bewildered. AWW. Talking to my boss after a long day of exams and assignments. I go to leave and she catches the door before I can leave to say goodbye. For some reason my wired brain made me give her Finn Jurgens and say Zoop as I walked away. Thought about it the whole way home. You, my friend, may have just started the next Reddit trend. Zoop. Walked into a bar that was packed full of people who had all come home for Christmas to my small town. I knew everybody there. I walked in, walked through the crowd, right past my sister, and out the back door. When my sister and I saw each other, she looked at me like, "Oh frick, you're freaking out, I bet." She knows all about my social anxiety. She knew exactly what I had just done, and she thought it was hilarious. I can't look people in the eye. If I keep eye contact longer than couple of seconds, I either feel this weird vibe like the other person is looking into my soul or some weird sexual tension, like I get the urge to make out with them. I find long eye contact to be one of the most personal things I can do with someone, and it gets really noticeable after a while, especially during drinking in mixed company. I've finally found someone who understands this problem. I thought I was only who felt this way. The worst part about it is if you're trying to be serious, people usually think you're lying, because you can't look them in the eye when trying to tell the truth. My roommates and I hosted a party. I wasn't having a good night, and went into my room to find two people I didn't know making out on my bed. I said, "Please leave when you're done," and went to my friend's room instead to curl up and freak out. I have social anxiety, but I think the bedroom instinct would overpower it and rather act all overconfident asking if I could join in, or I'd tell them to frick off. I'm a retail cashier. A woman was buying a dress and humorously stated that she might be too fat for it. Me, never one to disagree with a customer, smiled and said, "Yup, I burned a few calories hitting my head on the counter after that exchange. RIP. I hide when I have to make important phone calls at work. I hate phoning people, yet went and got a job that required it, which is ridiculous. I'll hide my caller ID and go take a walk to calm myself down, then use my mobile to call clients away from the office so nobody is listening. I once hid under a pile of blankets to avoid talking to someone I knew was coming up to my boyfriend's apartment for a few minutes. Living with roommates at the time, I was in my bedroom and had to pee really bad, but they were having a bit of a party. I decided to stay hidden in my bedroom and pee in an empty water bottle so I didn't have to interact with people on my way to the washroom. I've done something similar to this. I hate that. I feel like I'm not normal for feeling that, but thankfully I have a bathroom in my room now and I no longer have to face that. I had to pick something up from someone's house and was desperate for the loo. Didn't want to ask to use the bathroom in their house, so instead picked what I needed up, rudely rushed through small talk, basically ran to my car, drove far enough away they couldn't see me, and then parked again and half pee myself running into a bush. Wasn't even the first time I'd been to that house. Hotel public guest bathrooms are great for home away from home usage. Just walk past the lobby acting like you belong there. They're usually clean and typically pretty vacant. Unlike restaurants, no need for bushes. 1 year of high school I didn't have anyone in my lunch period that I was friends with. So instead of making friends with the other kids there, I'd eat really fast, then say I had to go study in the library, and would instead just wander around the halls until lunch was over. Except you weren't allowed to roam the halls like that, so I had to sneak around to avoid any teachers or hall monitors seeing me. I spent a lot of that time going from bathroom to bathroom, kind of just standing there waiting for time to pass. People keep asking these questions, so here are the answers. I didn't actually go in the library because I didn't want to spend my free time studying. I wasn't a huge fan of school in the first place. Sneaking around was honestly more appealing to me. We didn't have lunch together because there were too many students to have them all in the cafeteria at once. So lunch was broken up into 4 mini periods. Some kids ate lunch while the others were still in class and rotated in and out of the cafeteria. That's why we weren't allowed to roam the halls. Thanks for the concern, but I wasn't a super sad kid back then or anything. And I'm totally fine now. No, I'm not you. A teacher noticed that I didn't have any friends in lunch, and so she had me sort the teacher's mail in the office every day instead of going to lunch. Walked past my classroom but didn't wanna look stupid doing a freshman 180, so I circled all the way around the building, missed it again, and walked to some random restroom nearby and sat in the restroom for like 5 minutes because I didn't want people to recognize me as the dude who keeps doing laps around the frickin' chem lab building. One time, I had to leave someone a voicemail, so I wrote out exactly what I had to say and read it like a script when I left the message. Something about making calls really gets me anxious and I forget what I was going to say, or it gets jumbled. Scripts help, although I am better at calls now. This was years ago. I still do the same thing, otherwise I start rambling. I have gotten out of my car, walked up to the house of the party, then walked back to my car, then walked back up to the house, then back to my car until I finally texted my friend at the party, asking him to come get me outside so I wouldn't have to walk in front of the crowd alone. My solution is to arrive at the party before anyone else does and get hammered. That way my social anxiety is far gone before anyone shows up. My parents always bring up the time when I was 4 and we were at this Mexican restaurant. Apparently they started singing happy birthday to me, to which I smiled, but then got nervous and promptly, confidently, leaned over and bit my dad on the arm. You must have been a cat in your past life. I was going to leave my room to make dinner, but then I heard my roommates and their friends talking outside. I didn't want to talk to them, so I waited until they left and just bought takeout instead. I always listen for people before I leave my room. Sometimes I just don't wanna have to talk to anybody. Back in middle school I literally ran away when someone was going to ask me to the school dance. In my defense, I really had to pee. I still feel bad about it though. No one asked me to the school dance. I could probably be married by now if I would quit looking away every time I spy a woman trying to make eye contact with me. It always an instant reaction that I immediately regret. There are a multitude, but the one that comes to mind now. I'm a speech therapist in a school and I went to talk to one of the teachers about a student. I just so happened to find this teacher incredibly attractive at the time and tried to avoid him in the building sometimes to not embarrass myself blushing or stumbling over my words. Anyway, I go ask him about the student for a minute or two, turn around to leave the room, miss the door by about a foot and walked straight into the wall. Skipped out on a really good job interview because they wanted me to do a presentation in front of a few people as part of the interview. This happens to me with group interviews. I have no problem talking one-on-one with somebody, but I struggle when it's a large group. If someone ever comes to my door when I'm home alone, I'll army crawl around my house, avoiding all the windows until I get to the stairway and I can listen until they leave. I still do this as a 20-year-old woman. I crawl up the stairs to my bedroom, which has a view of the door so I can peep out the blinds until I know they are gone. It's only ever salesman anyways. A school friend of mine had invited me to a party at his house. The only person I knew there was him and 2 other people from my school I was not at the best of terms with. The party was taking place at the roof of his house and it had an open setup with a small room which contained a bed and a TV. I was tasked with bringing a console for the party and setting it up in that room. When I went in, I realized that the TV can't be connected due to lack of an HDMI port. However, at that moment, I heard music and hooting. The worst of my fears had come true. People were dancing in a circle and everyone was being pushed into it one by one. So, naturally I stayed in that small room for the remainder of the party, around 1.5 hours. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.